Good evening, everybody. Can you hear my voice? Want to make sure that the microphone is okay for you. Excellent. My name is Verl Osmond. I'm a representative here at Metastock, and I just wanted to do a short introduction for the webinar this evening. We're excited to have Dr. Howell with us. He will be discussing some really important topics, and we're glad to see so many of you from around the world joining us this evening. To introduce Dr. Howell, he helps traders develop a peak performance state of mind. He is both a licensed therapist and performance coach whose work is grounded in emotional regulation and mindfulness. He has a clinical background in training people to master their emotions and to transform self-limiting beliefs into productive mindsets. His work centers on how to break the fear-based beliefs that imprison a trader's performance and that block the development of a trader's potential to achieve financial and personal dreams. He is also the author of 4 very successful books, including Mindful Trading, Mastering Your Emotions, and The Inner Game of Trading. We're very excited to have him with us, and I'll now turn the time over to Dr. Howell.
Thank you, Verl. I tell you, I'm flattered. Who is this guy? I really appreciate the introduction. First of all, welcome to everyone, and I hope that wherever you are, that your holidays were great, and I hope that this new year is dawning, and what you're deciding to do is that this is the dawn of a new year, and you're going to be making the best of what we have to offer. And I hope that really truly applies to your trading. And my hope is that you're in a place where you're beginning to go, tell me something, what is it going to take for me to be a very truly successful trader? And what we're going to do is we're going to answer that. Last year, a guy comes up to me and he has a business card. And on that business card, he has a photograph of an enormous amount of gold. And he looked at me and says, Randy, what I want to be is I want to be worth a ton of gold. And I looked at him and I thought, you know, you've really got the visioning thing down. I'm sure you have the affirmations down, and I'm sure you work the program and you're doing that vision thing and you're sitting in front of a mirror. And I said, that's great, but tell me something. Who are you going to need to become for that vision to become a reality? You know, he looked at me and he didn't have an answer. He didn't have an answer. He somehow believed in kind of a magical thinking way that if I have the vision, they will come. The truth is, I know plenty of people who have vision, and yet they do not know how to make that vision come forth into the world and to bring it in for it to become a reality. Here we're going to look at what it takes. And here's the thing I want you to get, is the mindset that you brought to trading is not going to be the mindset that is going to make you a successful trader. They're very radically different things. Most people get into trading because they really truly want financial freedom and they want personal freedom. And they get there and they look at this and say, how hard could this be? If I study hard, I'm going to learn a methodology, I'm going to develop a system, and I'm going to be successful. And what they discover is that doesn't happen. You develop the tools, you develop the system, but you don't develop yourself. Remember, my friends, it is not your methodology that trades. It's your current mindset that trades your methodology. This is the biggie. And my question, let's start it here. What actually blocks peak performance in trading? Fundamentally, the piece you have to do is you have to take responsibility for the beliefs that you bring to the uncertainty and your ability to deal with uncertainty of the trading world. We get away with it in many domains, but when we get to trading, what we discover is that the things that we have been avoiding in our life come to haunt us in trading. It's inescapable, and that's what I like about trading. What blocks it? The truth is a lack of mindfulness. You avoid examining and redefining your beliefs about the management of uncertainty. That's a huge one. You know, most people are looking for the Holy Grail out there. They're going to develop tools. They're going to get new indicators. They're going to have methodologies. They're going to jump from guru to guru, looking for the holy grail that's going to put them over the edge and into peak performance trading, and it doesn't happen. Because, the second thing, believing that discipline can be found outside the self by tweaking your system to remove uncertainty. My friends, you are in a business that works with the management of uncertainty. This is not about predicting the future. It is about managing the uncertainty that's showing up and seeing what is predictable and reliable coming forward. The third thing is you stay stuck in what I call a self-limiting script that keeps you prisoner to ineffective emotional and mental trade practices. As we are born into histories, they become the scripts that our vision sees and that we create. And until we become an observer of that narrative, we bring the narrative to trading. And most likely, it is built around self-limiting beliefs. And unfortunately, what happens in trading is that your beliefs come true. Not the ones you want to believe in, but the ones that you were born to and are very familiar and sit in your background. That's what blocks trading. So what is successful trading? What is successful trading? You guys know the drill. I have never worked with a trader who's has less than 3 or 4 years worth of experience and has done thousands of hours worth of charting work. They come in, they know how to trade. If there were not risk involved, if there was not uncertainty involved, they would not have a problem with trading. They have a trading system. They have a platform that really, they've got the right time. They can get in and out of trades. They have a methodology. They have a way that, all things being equal, that would give them a methodological edge when they trade. The part that nobody looks for, the part that nobody looks at and stays away from, is the actual psychology, the mindset that the trader brings and drives the methodology in the platform. That's what's missing. You can have two traders side by side, and this is actually something that's happened quite recently to me. They both are seeing the same information. They have totally different beliefs about how to use that information, and they produce totally different results. And my promise to you, the one who is trading not to lose is the one that has the shrinking trading account. The one who is trading to see what the market will give him this time is the one that the market is giving him money. So what we're doing is we're saying, without integration of each of these components, you're an incomplete trader, and your ability to manage risk is going to put risk stacked against you. And the last piece that a trader is going to look at in his development is himself. That's the last piece. He's going to make sure he's going to try everything last until he finally, like Pogo, finally says at the campfire, I have seen the enemy, and it is us. In trading, you can be your best friend or you can be your worst friend. Is that until you manage the belief systems that you're bringing and mindfully bringing to the trading arena, you will continue in mediocrity. So tell me something. Here's the deal. In the program that I teach, this is the process. I'm going to show you the actual process that we use. There are 5 skills, essential skills for peak performance training. The very first skill is very biological in nature. It is the emotional regulation. It is the emotional regulation of both fear and impulse. Until you learn to regulate emotion, you do not get to the door of the mind and change all those pesky beliefs running around sabotaging your best efforts. The second skill that will have to be developed is being able to develop mindfulness as a tool. I know traders who have spent 10, 15, 20 years, and what they do is they finally come to a mindset that trades successful. I know traders who trade for 5, 10, 15, 20 years who finally get out of trading because they don't develop the mindfulness required to be able to develop the mental tools. The third, this is powerful, we're going to be looking at this tonight, is waking up to the internal dialogue. You know all those pesky thoughts running around in your mind? Those that it's all that noise. Well, my friends, it's not noise. It has tremendous substance. Unfortunately, we tend to push it aside and we don't listen carefully and figure out what are they saying because it's uncomfortable. Yet, the internal dialogue, those pesky thoughts, are the key about giving voice to the beliefs that are doing your trading. More about that later. Then, once you kind of do this mining and you open the door to the mind, you find out, oh my gosh, there's a lot of things going on down here beneath the surface. What you also discover is that there are tremendously empowered elements of the self that are just sitting there that have been pushed out of awareness, underutilized, that can be developed and can be brought into what I call the community of the mind. So that community is a lot more nuanced. It has power players. It still has the fears, but he knows how to deal with it now. Your mind has been open to being able to develop a totally different way of seeing in the world through different eyes of belief. Then, all that's well and good, but then the final step in the training that I do is you start becoming intentional about the mindset that you're actually bringing to trading. You don't wait till you're trading and have trouble. What happens is before you trade, you are pulling forward the mindset that you need to be able to trade well. We'll be talking about that more later too. So, let's take these elements and take a look at them, okay? The first essential element we talked about is emotional state management. What in the world is that? Fundamentally, what that means is being able to manage the intensity of an emotion so that it does not hijack your thinking. But first, let's even start more basic. This whole notion about emotion. What is an emotion? First, I want to tell you something, friends. It is not a feeling. An emotion is first and foremost biological, and it takes over mind. It is not psychological. An emotion from a neuroscience perspective is any triggering that creates a deviation in a standard, familiar, sensorial pattern that the brain has already established. Now, what does that science gobbledygook actually mean to you? Well, let's take a very practical example. Tremendous amounts of people have a problem with hesitation when they're looking at setups and seeing the confirmations. They want more and more and more and more and more. And eventually what happens, they either jump into trades, they enter trades, they shouldn't, they see the entry point, and sometimes they stay on the sideline, okay? What happens is before they start trading, most likely, they have a standard sensorial pattern that's okay. However, the moment that the trade starts warming up, that is the deviation from the standard sensorial pattern, and usually the brain, because of the way it's designed in your psychological history, is going to trigger to anxiety or fear rather than curiosity and calm authority. That's an emotion, and that's the way it works. So, let's move forward. So, what actually happens with the lack of management of fear? Because that is what bonds you to losing. First and foremost, understand this. All thinking is emotional state dependent. Understand that. It's a powerful, powerful distinction. And fear hijacks objective thinking every time. If fear is present, my promise to you is your ability to think objectively, clearly, and impartially in trading is very compromised. It is very polluted. Then, out of that, you develop a fear-based herd mentality. This is when the big professional fellas like Goldman Sachs start locking. They just start going, oh, I'm getting excited about this. We see the stampede. Because what happens is that you in your trading through fear become bonded to the 95% of the traders driven by fear. Then you start making decisions outside of your trading plan, okay, which was based on logic, because now you're in fear and you're trying to avoid or produce impulse, and they're on you. And that, my friends, is when you transfer your capital, your hard-earned sweat capital, to the 5% of traders who are disciplined and impartial. That's the problem with the lack of management of fear. So, now that we realize that, fear is not to be denied. Fear is to be mastered. Fear is, how do you work with fear? Well, if you begin to understand what the elements of an emotion are, it gives you a really big heads up. The first thing, in the elements of an emotion, what you discover is arousal is the very first thing that happens. Arousal and the triggering of an emotion, suddenly, going back to this example, you're looking at it set up and suddenly you start seeing information come in, you start seeing, and it's really time to start getting into that trade, find the entry point, and what happens is you notice that you're tense, you're tense, you're tense. Your eyes are fixated on the screen. You can feel your heart palpitating, and you can you're holding your breath. That is arousal. Your body is cranking up for action. Emotion. It is cranking up for action, and this is something that you cannot allow it to do to the point, because once it reaches a particular critical mass, a switch is flipped and you're out of control. The emotion takes over mind at that particular time. The second part of an emotion is the motivation. What is it telling you to do? And fundamentally, emotions fall down into three broad categories. They're going to tell you, compel you to attack, avoid, or approach. The third one, so important in trading, is meaning. What meaning of self becomes embedded into the emotion? This is big. We'll get to those. We'll actually be looking at the 4 self-limiting beliefs that occur in trading a little later. Feeling, stunningly important. Feeling is not touchy-feely, my friends. What it is it's chemistry in the body, and once that chemistry, the emotion in the body, and believe me, it's in the body in nanoseconds. Once it's there, you feel a subjective experience of the emotion, but what it's doing to your thinking is this. It produces what is known as a certainty of the direction that the emotion is taking you. And I'll talk about that a little later, but fundamentally it's this. Fear is going to produce a certainty, a belief of doom. Exuberance is going to produce a certainty that the good times are going to continually always to roll. Both are dangerous to a trader's mind. You cannot allow the feeling of either fear or exuberance to take over. They're dangerous. Or greed, for that matter. Again, it's a calm, impartial, authoritative mindset that produces the feeling state that you want in trading. Okay, temperament we're not going to talk about because that's really genetics and that's way beyond this course. Okay, so let's take a look at the process of fear as an emotion in trading. And what I want you to do is imagine wherever you have the biggest problem, wherever fear triggers and starts cranking up. First, the arousal. That's getting ready. It's getting you ready. And what you're going to notice is that short, shallow breathing. You got that body tenseness going. Your heart's racing. And your rational mind is swept away by the ticking time bomb of fearful thinking. Now, let's go to meaning. At the very core of every trader's problem is the meaning that has been attached to your ability to manage uncertainty. And here's the deal. If you have ever beaten yourself up after a losing trade, you know what inadequacy is. What kind of idiot were you? Why would I do that? You're stupid. What are you? I'm not good enough. The other is a deep sense of not mattering. I just really don't matter. I'm trying to prove that I matter by my trading. That's what I'm going to prove to my dead father of 25 years that I'm really a man, and I'm going to get rich, and I'm going to prove I matter. I can't tell you how many of that I run into. Unworthy. I really don't deserve to win and to be wealthy and to be able to this. I think I ought to have to work hard and struggle. I just don't feel worthy of money. Powerlessness is I'm out of control. I can't do anything. I might as well give up. That is what happened to the French airliner that crashed. They had a brain freeze. They felt powerless, and they could no longer do what pilots are so deeply trained to do. These, my friends, are the most avoided things in the self-limiting beliefs that happen. These are the ones that ultimately you have to build the skills and the tools to be able to confront and to reorganize, because those are the ones that are given voice in the internal dialogue that we'll be talking about a little later. So there you go, my friends. This is powerful stuff. I hope you're looking at this, and I hope you are getting this. I hope you're beginning to see the truth about trading is this, is that in many other domains of life, you can BS yourself through. You can avoid having to confront yourself. You can avoid looking at the mirror. In trading, you don't have to worry about those psychological demons attacking you. They're stalking you. Every time you trade, that's what's going on, is whatever the weak chink is in this inadequacy, not mattering, unworthy, and powerlessness, it's going to find, and it's going to trigger, and it's going to produce a cascade that stops you from being able to move to the next level. So, emotional motivation. An emotion compels action. Remember, this is not psychological stuff. It is going to compel you to avoid the perceived threat. That would be like hesitation, run, hide, freeze, submit. How many people go in here, drink a lot of coffee, they try to leave the room, they don't feel, or they're sitting there holding on to the trigger and they can't pull it because their hand is frozen. That's avoidance. Attack. Who in here has ever done revenge trading? Who in here has ever impulse trade? Who in here has ever overtraded? This is attack motivation, dangerous. And a lot of people, men in particular, come into trading thinking they can attack their objective and get it. You do that in trading, and the markets don't care. They don't even know you're there. You're just an ant in a huge, huge world. However, approach motivation, you're calm, you're impartial, you're observing, and what you can do is you can begin to see openness. You become mindful. You're no longer in a state of threat. And this is where we're heading. So, let's pull all this stuff together. What does it actually look like? Okay? Let's take a look at what the brain and mind actually look like on fear. This is your trading day. This is what happens on a daily basis with literally thousands and thousands of traders. They're just not talking about it. First and foremost, your brain is a negative assessment machine. It assumes harmful intent bias. This is something that was bred into us through evolution from the African savannas forward. It's not going to go away. We are going to assume, like for instance, have you ever noticed when you turn on the news, have you ever found anything good? If they put on good news, nobody watches. The negativity, negative intent bias, attracts your attention. Second, the brain does not distinguish between uncertainty and fear by itself. You literally have to begin to develop the distinctions. You have to be able to move from a state of fear to a state of concern so that you can work with probability. It is always, particularly in our culture in the United States, you are always trying not to lose. You're not necessarily trying to win. You are trying not to lose. Think about grades. Think about that. Think about the way you take tests. Fundamentally, then the brain organizes you to avoid uncertainty and fear. This is called comfort zone. It locks you in. The problem is the comfort zone becomes a prison. And anytime you try to leave that comfort zone, even though you're miserable there, you trigger and you're pulled back into the comfort zone. It's so much better being predictable and certain in there, even if you are miserable, than to push through the fear and to go into the unknown and recognize that I'm going to have to work with and manage uncertainty. Whew. Yes, that's what you're going to have to do if you're going to be successful in trading. Then, not only does it organize you into a comfort zone, then it forms self-fulfilling patterns that just keep on repeating and repeating and repeating, keeping you small, but safe and certain, because that's what your biological destiny would rather have. It would rather be safe than to live a meaningful life. Then the patterns go on automatic, and they dominate your state of mind before you ever started thinking and had the ability of thinking back. Then you trade, you live your life from avoidance or greed rather than from calm impartiality. That's just the way it is. Okay? Now, one step further is that there is a glitch in the brain. When you're looking at this chart here, what you're seeing is that uncertainty goes through a process so fast. Uncertainty produces ambiguity. Ambiguity produces confusion. The brain does not like confusion at all. It will jump to any explanation, even if it's a really dumb, stupid one, to be able to get out of fear. If you want to know what impulse is, that's it. And suddenly, there you are at fear. Unless you know how to emotionally regulate and to be able to call forward different parts of the self. So what does this really look like? Okay? Well, who in here has ever felt like this poor guy? Who in here has ever gone Hulk on us? You know, you're holding your breath, you've got these tense muscles, your eyes, your jaws, you got this fixation, your heart, your pulse is pounding, your energy, just increasing energy, it's about to blow up out of your head, and then you lose clear thinking. Well, it's at that moment when later you wake up from this spell, from this hijacking, you look at it and go, what was I thinking? Why this is a simple trade. I should have been able to do this. What in the world took over me? This is exactly what took over. Everything we've talked about, and here's the process that you're looking at pictorially that happens when the mind is hijacked. And suddenly you're no longer trading from the calm, impartial state of mind that can produce success and move you forward. What you're doing is you're trading from fear or anger, and you're locked in to the same old patterns that you've been in. Fortunately, there is a way to get out of this problem. The first step that we talked about was emotional regulation. This is actually getting a handle on your emotions so that they're just not sweeping you away. And by the way, just to let you know, there's a lot of trainers, well-intended trainers, who will tell you is when you trade, just park your emotions at the door. You don't bring them into the trading room. Friends, I'm here to tell you something. The only time that you do not have emotions is when you're dead. And I do not want that to happen to you. So the thing is, you cannot leave emotions at the door. Even in partiality, this no emotion actually is an emotion that is very good for trading. In the same way that fear is an awful emotion to trade with. In emotional regulation, what you're really doing is you are interrupting the arousal and motivational elements of fear. And that, my friends, gives you the capacity to manage the emotion so that it doesn't hit that critical mass and the switch is flipped and your mind is hijacked. That's what emotional regulation can do. It so happens that breathing and relaxation are key elements in this. And what you can ultimately do is you can use those to produce a relaxation response as a conditioned reflex to calm the trading mind. And that's the first stage of my training. I do that, but I do it in the context of trading rather than context of a yoga studio or something like that. No, it has to be in the rigors of trading. The key that you need to understand about breathing and relaxation is that breathing, the style of breathing you do, is actually a component of an emotion. It is part of the biology of an emotion, as is tenseness. If you interrupt tenseness and the breathing style associated with an emotion, that emotion, say fear, cannot maintain itself. So when you walk away from here tomorrow morning when you start trading again, I want you to observe what happens as you start moving into the trade and start noticing the tenseness, the breathing style, and then what happens is through diaphragmatic breathing, you can begin to alter it. Through relaxation, muscle relaxation, you can begin to take away the power of that emotion to absolutely hijack a perfectly well-trained mind. So, this is all well and good, and a lot of people will, they'll look at my work and say, wow, Randy, this is great. This is what you're about. No, this is not what I'm about. Fundamentally, it's this. Without emotional regulation, you do not get to the mind. Okay? Emotional regulation is just a set of skills you are going to have to learn if you want to develop the mind for trading. You have to manage the emotional brain before you get at the beliefs of the mind. So, let's just say you've done that. Let's say you've done that. And this is actually the first 3 weeks of my personal training program, okay? The second skill, the big one, is mindfulness. In mindfulness, with emotion calmed, you can actually approach the mind. And then mindfulness becomes the window through which you observe the mind, your beliefs, your thoughts. Just like in this painting, you're seeing this person look through in a calm state of mind out through the window into the vastness. Then, as you develop it, mindfulness actually becomes the tool for the reorganization of your belief system or your the self. And what does that really look like? In my work, what I do is we talk about the development of the observing self. In this illustration, what you're really seeing is the way the brain works. Is there is a witness, an observer, witnessing phenomenon. Depending on who that observer is, that is what you see. That was the difference between those two traders trading side by side, but had vastly different results. One saw through fear, one saw through opportunity. Okay? Observation of self is an essential skill and tool for developing and looking at the mind's beliefs. It is what is so essential. And it just so happens I teach it as a way of stepping back, and you'll discover that it's an inherent skill that all human beings have. It's just that particularly in consumer cultures such as the United States, nobody wants the consumers to become mindful because they would realize that all this external gratification that they're buying and can't afford, in fact, does not produce the peace and tranquility that they're actually seeking. But they keep filling it up on a temporary basis because that's what happens is, it's just like eating. It makes you feel good for a moment. The problem is it makes you fatter, and then you don't feel so good, but then you eat more because it makes you feel better at that particular moment. You hit cessation for a moment. That's the emotion. The emotion does not think. You're going to have to do that. So, with mindfulness, what you do is you actually have the tool to develop an awareness of the embedded issues, self-limiting beliefs, and thoughts that are driving your perception without you knowing it. And that, my friends, is what's driving your trading. That's what's driving your methodology. That's what's driving the way you use your platform. Then the development of an observing self as a witness to the going and coming of thought, essential. I'll spend a couple of weeks doing this with people because I want them, it is such an incredibly important tool to transforming old beliefs. Okay? Then you begin, an essential thing is what you discover profoundly, and this is what you would learn in Zen Buddhism, that you and your thoughts are not the same. And my friends, you do not have thoughts running around in your mind. Thoughts have you. These thoughts literally are the voice of your beliefs. And your trading account is the barometer of whether or not they're self-limiting or whether or not there's effective beliefs to manage uncertainty. It's a cut and dry situation. Once you grasp that you and your thoughts are not the same, you have opened a gigantic door into the redevelopment of the self to be able to produce peak performing in your trading. And you also begin to break the chain from your historical pattern. Now, what do I mean by that? What's so important about that? This thing we call I, it comes as a derivative of identity. What in the world is an identity? The truth is, from a biological standpoint, is your brain adapts you to the historical circumstances to which you're born. That's what brains do. And before you can think, your sense of self is already organized around survival, around these identity influencing factors. Now, notice what I said, survival, okay? I didn't say thriving. It wants you to survive and breed into the species for another generation. It wants you alive. They go on automatic and you become blind to them. And as long as you're blind to them, they are trading you. You are not trading, they are trading you. And again, you're trading your beliefs, and the thoughts are actually the voice of your self-limiting beliefs. It's an essential thing. With mindfulness as a tool, you actually bring into your awareness these artifacts of another time and another place that you didn't even know were buried right in the big zone of your awareness. When you do that, you begin to understand when you review your trading day and you go, why did I do that? Here's why. When you begin to observe it, you go, oh my God, I was asleep at the wheel. I didn't even know these currents of destiny were going on inside me. With mindfulness, you develop the tool that they are. Now, you develop this tool. Let's just say you develop this tool. You say, Randy, I'm with you here. I'm beginning. This is making way too much sense. I wish it didn't, but the truth is I'm proving to myself I am the problem in my trading. It is not my methodology. It is not my platform. And you start going, okay. Well, what you're trying to do, and this is where my use of mindfulness is so radically different than an Eastern perspective of mindfulness, is we're just not observing thought, man. I want to tell you something. This is assertive. We're going after them. Here, with mindfulness, you can observe the internal dialogue. And remember, internal dialogue are these voices. This is the voices of your self-limiting beliefs that hold you prisoner to your current level of performance. If you learn to change them, you move to the next level. If you stay where you are, you stay where you are. Then, it's the difference between internal chatter versus internal dialogue. I'm going to tell you something. This is not noise going on in your head, my friend. If you think all this little blah, 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 blah running around your head is noise, you have been so suckered. It has tremendous substance. This literally is where your self-limiting beliefs and the emotions that they're tied to are given voice. This is your historical internal dialogue. My friends, get this really, I really need you to get this. You are born into this soup, this history. You adapt to this. You come to believe it is you. Okay? It's not true, though. It's just an organization of the self. And it's something that you have to overcome. That's really all there is to it. Most of us, like this picture here, is you just don't want to hear it. But when you do it, what you do is you begin to start tuning in. You go, there are these awful things that are going on in my head, Randy. I don't really want to hear them. You need to listen to them, because the thing is you start hearing, there, you are so stupid. I made the same mistake. I'll never make it. And all of a sudden you start going, oh my God, this is the hidden thought life of your beliefs. Now, let's take it a step farther. Let's say these beliefs become elements of the self, okay? And what I want to do is this. This is the internal dialogue, and if you walk away with nothing but this and start examining it in your trading, it is enlightening. It gives you an idea of what needs to be done. There is an inner critic living within the self. Remember, the brain is a negative assessment machine. It doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. Your brain is a negative assessment machine. If you have ever had the sense of criticism, of judgment, never being good enough, of being tempted, something predicting doom, that, my friends, is the inner critic living within you. It's inescapable. It's there. If you pretend it's not there, you give it ambush quality status. That's the first one. Now, it's in a dance, though. Remember, this is a dialogue we're talking about here. And here's the adapted voice. This is the part that does the trading. This is the part that locks you into poor performance. First, the doubter. I can never win. Chicken Little. When you negative appraise, that's you sitting there in hesitation, wanting more confirmation, and oh, I could lose. What if you lose? What if you lose? And you feel fear. The gambler. I'm going to take, I see my target, but this is going to go on forever. Welcome to the casino. The perfectionist, which, by the way, is the vast majority of traders. The perfectionist thinks, I can't lose. I can't lose. If I lose, it means that I'm not good enough. I can't lose. This is a holdover from families and from our educational systems. The entitled one, I deserve to win. The con, that's when you lie to yourself about what's really going on. You can do that for a while. You can deceive yourself for a while, but in trading, man, it blows you up. The fraud, that's all these people, if you're in a trading room on the internet and everybody's talking about how great they're doing and you're sitting there, well, I'm not doing so good. What's the problem here? What happens is they're frauds. This is a virtual reality, and 90% of the people in that trade room are losing money, okay? If 90% aren't saying that, you know that somebody's being a fraud. The orphan. If you experience fear in trading, you experience orphan. That's the fear of missing out. Either I'm going to get out early just to have some profit, oh my God, or I'm not going to get in. What if I lose? The saboteur, that's the one who puts some good days, some good weeks, maybe some good months together, and then blows himself up. The alpha, the favorite American corporate executive going into trading. I have been very successful. I have set goals. I have achieved goals. I have made things happen. I have won. It's all about winning. And I will make the market, I will make my competitors submit. Man, you bring that mindset into trading, it's a formula for disaster. A lot of people do it and they have to learn. This is the dance of the internal dialogue. I hope you've written down your favorite, and I hope tomorrow when you start trading that you really begin to see it in action. So, the truth is, whether or not you like it or not, this is the core of the internal conflict as mental dialogue that actually reveals the organization of self that trades. You need to be listening and observing for it, not pretending it's not there. The thing is, what do you do about it? That's really the key. So we're there. Then we say, well, Randy, we're here, and I've got this stuff, but now what are we going to do? Everything, boy, this is a bummer. No, the truth is we're here now saying you can develop a powerful trading committee in your mind. And I call it Awakening the Heroes. And out of it, the very first thing that has to happen is you have to really rethink, reconsider what the mind really is. I ask you to consider the mind as a boardroom, and that there are different factions representing all sorts of different factors in that boardroom. And it just so happens the chairman of the board, that should be you, has been sleeping on the side, and these various factions have been taking over the mind and leading it into various directions. But there is not leadership in the direction it's going to be taken. When you begin to see the mind that way, things start making a lot more sense. Suddenly, when you open up the hood of the mind and you look in, you're thinking, what I'm really looking for is who composes, what elements of the self are active and have the most power to take over my thinking and the way I perceive and how I act in my trading. There, you're beginning to ask the right questions. And here's the key. What you're going to do is you're going to go on a journey of discovery. And what you're going to discover is that what you're looking for is already there. It's not outside of the self, friends. The Holy Grail is not outside the self. The Holy Grail is inside the self. When you start recognizing that, things happen. And my friends, here's the thesis. In the same way that fear and judgment reside within you, so do discipline, so do patience, so do courage, so do impartiality. This is the powerful stuff. And if you recognize that they are there, they are there. The only question then becomes, how do you awaken them? How do you find them? One process that I use at this particular time is to talk about the Jungian archetypes. These are elemental parts of the self that are found across all cultures. In the same way that fear represents orphan, courage represents warrior. And you better have courage, because like in this image right here, the warrior in you is going to confront your inner dragons. It's going to happen. They're going to be there. If you want to reorganize from a comfort zone that is producing poor results into a higher functioning self, you are going to have to confront the dragon at the door, because it's going to protect the current state of affairs. Then you're going to have to find a ruler living within the self that provides discipline. That's the chairman of the board. That's the one that rides herd. That's the one that gets all the information about what needs to be done and makes decisions based on really good uptime, good information. You will know it is discipline in your trading when you're no longer sucked into bad trades and you can actually trade your trading plan. That's the discipline. You'd find that. The other element of the self, totally essential in trading, is impartiality, which in Jungian terms is called sage. When you have cooled the fear down of the orphan and slain the dragon, what happens is that fear no longer contaminates the clear, impartial thinking required of trading. The moment fear shows up, it's going to contaminate impartial thinking. This is the powerful thing. You can begin to see not only is this emotional regulation, but what you're doing is you're beginning to reorganize the trading committee of the mind, because finally what's happening is the chairman of the board is waking up and realizing that he has let this thing slide and it is time to reorganize this thing and get it pumping. The last part of the mind required for transformation of the trading self is a caregiver, one that nurtures, one that has compassion, one that soothes, one that encourages. Mostly in trading, what you find is a bunch of people, when a mistake is made, when a loss occurs, what they do is they beat themselves up. And my question to every last one of you, has that ever worked to make you a better trader? No. What it's going to do is to dig your fear deeper. And you're going to have to go looking for it all over again. Fundamentally, compassion is the antidote to fear. Compassion untangles the neurology of self-limiting beliefs and opens it up to be able to experience a deeper self-worth. Out of that, you are no longer trading to prove your self-worth by your net worth. You are freed, and it produces a completely different trader. Powerful, powerful stuff. What does this look like as a system? Well, when you start realizing these archetypes are not something weird, they are just simply parts of our human condition. And again, if you've experienced fear, everybody has experienced discipline, compassion, impartiality, and courage at different moments of the life. The key is to organize it so that you can call that forward. And fundamentally, what a trading mind looks like, you start with the emotional state of discipline, it becomes ruler. Patience becomes caregiver. Courage becomes warrior. Impartiality becomes sage. You begin working with these, and your trading committee starts being populated with these characters rather than just the ones who are bent on your self-destruction. This is when it gets phenomenally, phenomenally important. But this is when the fifth skill happens. It's actually changing the self that trades. The struggle has always been within you. The conflict has always been within you. It's not outside of you. There are many methodologies that will work. There are many platforms that will work if you bring the right mind to it. So, the real key in this fifth skill is becoming intentional. You start realizing, oh my God, these are elemental parts of the self. I have felt them. I have experienced them. And then what you do is you develop these parts of the personality rather than letting them continuing to languish and staying in trading not to lose. Then you're able to confront your fears from a position of strength rather than weakness. And you transform your self-limiting beliefs into life-affirming beliefs that you take into the trading room. It creates a completely different bottom line. A different mind trades at that time. And what happens is your internal dialogue changes its interpretation of uncertainty from fear to risk management of probability. Completely different thing. How do you do this, though? How do you do this? This sounds nice, but why don't affirmations, why don't vision statements, why don't stuff like that work? Well, the truth is, because they don't work on the level of belief. You can't fool the orphan living within you. You can't just pretend the inner critic's going to go away. I use a process of both symbolic representation. That's really, when the brain produces thought, what thought really is the symbolic representation of chemistry going on in the brain. And it just so happens in that what we did is these symbols you just saw of the archetypes are symbolic representations. And a lot of guys, when they see Maximus in Gladiator, they feel the ruler, they feel the warrior swell in them. That's the archetypal energy, and that's what a symbolic representation to do. I also use something called memory retrieval enrichment. I take a memory where these qualities have shown up, and I teach you how to mine and bring forward those elements of the self so that you're acting from them rather than from your historical self. Then what I do is I use a series of rehearsals where I put you through situations where you are confronting and pushing through those fears, and you're pushing them not from the fearful state of mind, wishing and hoping. You're doing it from a sense of discipline, a sense of courage, impartiality, and deep compassion for self. Completely changes everything. And what that does, here's what happens. Here's the old way, okay? The moment uncertainty triggers, there's your fear, and that fear triggers All those self-limiting beliefs. That's a psychological organization of self. And what you invariably do from that position is you impulse trade or you fear-based trade. You run, hide, freeze, submit, or you attack. This is where, I don't know, somewhere between 80 and 95% of traders live, and it's where most people have to move beyond to get to the next level in their trading. This is where people stay stuck. If you go the other route to mindful trading, something completely different happens. You begin to understand the dynamics of mind and how fluid it really is and how belief is so fluid. On the left, you see exactly what we saw in a representation from the next page, last page. However, on the right, you begin to see graphically what I'm talking about. When you have an emotionally regulated, calm, focused mindset, what you do is you have mindful trading and you have command of the internal dialogue that you bring into trading. Out of that, what you'll discover is this chairman of the board, the ruler, produces the discipline about what direction and who is going to act. And out of that, you find the courage, the warrior. You find the patience, the caregiver. You find the sage, the impartiality, to be able to do the work. You confront your fears. You trade with impartiality. You soothe the fears. Okay? And this is all done out of passion. And this is what I call trader's state of mind. It's very possible, my friends. It's very possible. I see people do it every day. But what it does is it does require work. And friends, we're about to close. And what I want to do is I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and having the hope and the courage to say, you know something? This is beginning to make sense. I think I'm beginning to understand how I stay in limiting patterns. What I hope you've learned is a lot about the brain, emotion, and mind. I hope you have learned to be able to name your fear and how that fear works. I hope you now know the voice of your fear and that something very, very different is there. And my invitation is that if this thing stirs in you and this resonates with you, my encouragement is go to my website. There's lots of free stuff. There's stuff that you can spend a lot of time there and check out a lot of stuff. However, what I also encourage you to do, I'm having a new course coming up. It's a self-study, video-based course that I'm initially doing with Traders Help Desk, and it's going to be on my website. It's very powerful, but it's just simply not done yet. However, if you're serious about your trading, and if you've recognized that, yes, Randy, one thing I've come to understand is that I am the problem in my trading, and it's time for me to do something about this. I want it. I want to become a good trader, and I know that it is me, myself, and I that is holding me back. If that's you, and if you're serious about change, I invite you to have a free consult with me. All you have to do, there's no obligations. You get an hour with me, and you can take what we've done here, and you can really apply it to your trading, and you can really see what you need to do. And what you do is you just simply go to my website, you hit Contact Us, and Dolores, my manager, will arrange time for us. It's kind of slippery. I have a pretty stacked schedule, but we will find a time and a place to talk. Now, my conversations are on they're video and they're on Skype. You need Skype. It's very, very good because what it does is it allows us basically to be inside the room. And you come away an hour with me, and you get to see how this individually is working in your trading in your life. That's what I encourage you to do if you're serious. Now, I thank you, and the one thing I'd like to do before I take questions is I would like to thank Verl, and I would like to thank Metastocks. What we have done over time is we're very careful about picking the affiliates that we associate with and that we work with. I am looking to help transform people's lives. I am looking at not having a short-term fix. I am looking at something where I want to see you in 5 years achieving your personal and financial dreams. And what I know is the technology that I use, the thought that I use, can help you do that. I'm looking to work with people like Metastocks that are very serious about the long-term benefit that clients get from them. I cannot encourage more. If you're looking for the kind of tools that they have, please get them. So, my friends, we have about 5 minutes, and I would be delighted to entertain some of your questions if you have them. So all you have to do is type them in, and what we'll do is we'll answer them. So go for it. And by the way, I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. You guys, I love it when we have a sampling from all over the world. Okay, are the PowerPoint slides available? Yes, they are. You're going to need to email us at, you go to Trader's State of Mind and you hit contact us, and what happens is we'll send them to you. Okay, they're big. It's a big one, but also understand that this thing is also going to be on the Metastocks thing. Okay. No, oh, on YouTube. I'm sorry. It's also going to be on YouTube. So, are there any other very helpful, this and that, the other, 100% satisfied? Thank you.
Everyone who registered.
Oh, what I am told to tell you is that everyone who registered here will get the link to YouTube. Okay, so that will be through Metastocks, and that's a recording. And I think that's it, my friends. I don't see any more. I see a lot of thank yous and stuff like that, and you're welcome. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. From here, wait a minute. We have a question. Are you suggesting that through the introspection that we move from effect to cause, and hence through our, what I would say is this, is that we're constantly in the process of inventing the world that we live in. There is not a world out there. There is a world that there is an observer within us that sees potential possibility in the world. And what I like about trading is that it reveals that. Trading is like an ocean, a beach, that has large waves that surfers are surfing on. You can have a good ride if you allow the wave its due. You can't tell the wave what to do. It doesn't even know you're there. What you do is you learn to dance with it. If you have fear, it's not going to happen. You're going to get swallowed up. But truly, I don't mean this in a law of attraction kind of way, but literally the belief systems that you see and interact in the world with, that is the world that you are continually bringing forth into existence. Okay. I think that's it. Okay. We are mindful that we were both second college. Yes. We are the yin and the yang. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there's no other questions, I wish you a prosperous new year. I hope that you learn to use your mind to manifest the glory that lives within you rather than the limitation. And I hope that's applied to your trading, and my sincere hope is that you find both prosperity and personal freedom within it. And with that, thank you and good night.